SABC News presentation.
Welcome to Interface. My name is Thembi Samachele. With the looming Zimbabwean elections, the world is once again waiting with bated breath for the outcome of these polls, which have been set for the end of this month, and that's July. The last elections were fraught with allegations of vote rigging, violence and intimidation, and the outcomes were disputed by activists and the opposition party in that country. Now tonight on Interface we ask the question, what is at risk should the outcome of these elections not be free and fair? And our guests are Professor Shedrack Guto, who's the Professor of African Renaissance Studies at UNISA. Kumbirai Muchemwa is the spokesperson for the Movement for Democratic Change, and also we have in the studio Kennedy Mandaza, who is the spokesperson for ZANU-PF. Thank you very much to all three of you gentlemen for joining me, and welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And let me just say that if you do want to join in the discussion, as usual, you can send us an SMS, and that number is 33726, or you can find us on Facebook. Already your thoughts and your comments have been pouring in, so do keep them coming. Let's start with first you, Prof. Already the AU, SADC, they're saying that the environment in Zimbabwe is such that all the parties are committed to peace, and already they are saying that the outcome of the elections will be free and fair. But has that not been said before? Isn't that usually the premise that we go into every election with when it comes to Zimbabwe?
Well, I think that the critical thing about what the Africa Union Commission has said is basically that they think this is going to be relatively free and fair. And I think given the level of violence we saw in 2008, we would already by this time say that it is relatively free and fair. That is the campaign. We haven't gone to we still have a few days. And one hopes that it will be relatively peaceful, but not absolutely peaceful. The question as to whether it is going to be free and fair depends on a whole lot of factors, which some of them are still really very contentious. Voters' roll. Yeah. If you don't even have a credible voters' roll, it's very difficult to talk of a free and fair election. So I don't think the AU has already said it will be free and fair. They hope it will be free and fair, but they haven't said it will be free and fair.
But they've seen the allegations that have been made that the voters' roll contains names, about 1 million names of deceased people or people that are no longer in Zimbabwe. And yet they've come out, Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, the chair of the AU, has come out saying that's how she hopes the election will be. Or that's how they
hopes. Okay. She hopes. She didn't say they will be. She said she hopes. And I think it would be a terrible mistake right now to predict the free and fairness before we go through the process. That's what I was saying. So the voters' roll is a sticky point, but it is one which is very easy to verify. Even after the elections, if there are disputes, you will be able to demonstrate in a court of law that, you know, the roll was falsified, or, you know, in some constituencies we understand or we hear there were, you know, if you like, oversubscribed, in others undersubscribed. Okay. So we need to know where is the truth. The question of peace and security, yes, I think that's relatively okay. The security forces is another one.
All right. Just on that voters' roll issue, though, Prof. Kumbirai, I hear what Prof is saying about the AU hoping that the elections will be free and fair, but I think, in all honesty, they have expressed confidence that that election is going to be free and fair. What is your sense going into this particular election as the MDC, having participated in 2008 and also now being part of the Government of National Unity there?
Oh, thank you. At this stage, with regards to the issue of violence, it is fairly limited. Intimidation is still going on, but compared to 2008, the environment is admittedly better. With regards to the voters' roll and the voter registration process, there are serious problems. For example, the voter registration process seemed to be deliberately slow in certain areas. For example, at a school called Marlborough High School, there were long queues on the day the voter registration closed. And this is not just one, this is just one example. In Mavuku, people stoned the place where the voter registration was taking place. Coming to the voters' roll itself, mind you, political parties as of today have not been given a copy of the voters' roll. So how do you go into an election? How do you have confidence that the voters' roll that you're going to be using results in a credible outcome in the poll? So the outcome, as of now, cannot be judged whether it can be credible, free and fair. We can't use those words as of this stage. There's too many issues outstanding.
Kennedy, let's bring you into this conversation now. There are allegations already that ZANU-PF there's a report out that ZANU-PF has a strategy already for rigging the elections. What do you say to that kind of thing?
Thank you so much. I think one thing to note here is that the AU, SADC, and many other people have said that at the moment, if there is anything that people see as if it is not normal, if there are any allegations of vote rigging, then evidence should be brought to the people. If it is with ZEC, it should be taken to ZEC. If it is with ZANU-PF, the relevant authorities should be informed that vote rigging, or we have this particular document. And we hear also that the same thing was asked Madam Zuma, and she's also asked for the same evidence so that we can verify whether the allegations are true.
So why did your leader, Morgan Tsvangirai, then make the claim that there is such a report and that he has put that report forward to the AU?
I think it was based on the statements made by Ms. Zuma, where after meeting leaders of political parties and she made a comment that she thought the leaders were happy. And that is the picture that he was trying to paint. That, you know, for example, if you look in Harare, the numbers of polling stations have been reduced. I think it was going to be about 830 polling stations in an area which is about 1.2 million registered voters. In Midlands, there's about 762,000 registered voters, but there's about 1,300 polling stations. We are back to 2002, where we stood in queues for 2 days. So it is part of the same tactics.
But Kennedy is saying, if there's a report like that, why should it not be made available? And Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma has also said, let's see this report. I haven't seen it. Morgan Tsvangirai says, there is a report, we've given it to you. Who's not telling the truth there?
No, the truth is out there. The truth is out there. There isn't any need to produce any report to be made available to anyone. ZEC is a nominally independent institution. It's just that it has been taken over by parts of the army and ZANU-PF. The election of 2008, there cannot be any doubt about rigging in Zimbabwe. We cannot deny it. The election of 2008, the June 27 election.
No, but I get that. I think for the interest of time, we don't want to go back to the 2008 election. We want to talk about the 2013 election. Yeah. Now you are part of the government, essentially. Your leader is the Prime Minister. And are you still claiming that there are those irregularities even now?
The irregularities still exist.
Kennedy?
My response is similar to the one that I've given. If there are any allegations that have been made, there are relevant authorities that are there in Zimbabwe where these documents that are claimed to be available should be taken to, so that due processes can be taken into consideration. And if anything is proven that this is what is happening, then the truth will come out. Right. But more importantly, I think this issue of vote rigging and many other issues that have been raised, there are issues that have been raised as of now in order to make sure that when an outcome does not suit a particular group of people, already they would have said that the whole process was not legitimate. So it is a process or a way of trying to delegitimize an election process that is yet to come to its fruition.
Prof, I want to ask you about the comments coming from outside of Zimbabwe about this particular election, but we have to take a quick break. We are back after this and we continue with this discussion. Do keep your thoughts coming on our Facebook page. It's Interface on SABC3 and also on our SMS line 33726. Welcome back to Interface here on SABC3, talking about the upcoming election in Zimbabwe. And we're joined in the studio by Professor Shadrack Kuto, who is a professor of African Renaissance Studies at UNISA. And Kumbirai Muchenwa is the spokesperson for MDC. And also Kennedy is with the ZANU-PF party in Zimbabwe, and that is Kennedy Mandaza. I was just trying to look for your surname, Kennedy. Thank you so much for joining us. Prof, the role of SADC and also the AU. We've always heard the line that Zimbabweans must find their own solution and they must solve their own problems, and that SADC and the AU are there to facilitate a positive outcome in Zimbabwe. And we heard recently that the SADC team that was there made a recommendation that the elections be held 2 weeks from the date that they're going to be held on, and that's because the Constitutional Court in Zimbabwe said no, actually, they must be held on that date. Is that a positive sign that Zimbabweans are taking charge?
No, I think it is important. Every country, the people of the country must decide their own destiny and future. And therefore, to say Zimbabweans must be in charge of ensuring that they have credible, free and fair elections is a responsibility of the people of Zimbabwe, but more so of the leaders of the various political parties taking part, but also of the electoral management body to ensure that they are. The question around SADC is critical. Without SADC intervention in Zimbabwe after the chaos of 2008 and ensuring that they have a government of power sharing, people call it a government of national unity. It was not one of national unity. It was one of power sharing.
Okay.
And relatively, the economy is beginning to pick up. Violence, state-engineered violence has gone down. And those are positive. Zimbabwe has a new constitution, which is far more better than the Lancaster House constitution that was a package by the colonialists and so on. So I think that those steps are because of SADC and the AU.
Okay.
And the AU and SADC should take charge and ensure that they really make the parties in the field do what is right for Zimbabwe.
I think beyond how this election is run is the key issue for the electorate.
Yeah.
What are these two parties and others that are on the roll, but what are they offering the people of Zimbabwe? And you each possibly have a manifesto that you are sticking to, that you possibly have had even in the previous election and may have modified for this election. So Kennedy, what are you offering the people of Zimbabwe different to what the MDC is offering?
The ZANU-PF is a party that has a very long history. And because of its history, starting from the liberation struggle, one of the very most important things that as a party we are looking at is looking at ways to make sure that those programs that we started in 1980, we continue with them. There was a short period, the last 4 years, which we were not given time to look at those issues that we wanted to continue doing. And at the moment, we are looking at 6 issues which are structured on the premise of our ideology of indigenization and economic empowerment, based on the agrarian revolution and making sure that we also make our people masters of their own destiny by making sure that they own the resources that are in the country. They also have a major stake in the economy per se, in the mainstream economy.
And I like that you mentioned the economy, because that is a key issue for your country. But in the interest of time, we've got to take another short break. But quickly, if you could, Kumbirai, just give us your party's position, particularly on boosting the Zimbabwean economy.
Well, the manifesto from the MDC is very comprehensive. It talks about creation of jobs, resuscitation of industry, infrastructure, health, education. In other words, it takes Zimbabwe from a hermit kingdom into a country which plays its part on the international fora.
But surely you credit ZANU-PF for the positive change that Prof was talking about in terms of turning things around in Zimbabwe.
Well, I don't know if 250 million % we can give credit to them, yes, we give credit to them. 3 million Zimbabweans in South Africa, yes, we give credit to them. 95% unemployment, yes, we give credit to them. Insults by Robert Mugabe, who insults everyone, you know, his embarrassment, yes, Robert Mugabe has done very well in those areas.
But those are the things that are highlighted in the media. What we are seeing now is that the policy, particularly when it comes to what is termed the land grabs, everybody was criticizing that. And now we are getting reports saying that there are some changes, it's starting to yield some fruit.
10 years later, did we have to go through this process of murders, of, you know, of people being moved from their homes? Did we have to get to this process?
No, but I think it is critical to say that the invasion of farms was not a ZANU-PF policy at the beginning. ZANU-PF jumped on a bandwagon of a popular uprising against even the government of ZANU-PF because it had done nothing about land reform. Seriously, and therefore people said we are going to march into the farms, and when they did, Mugabe was too afraid to be able to remove the people. He turned it around to make it look as if it is the policy of Mugabe.
Serious
so I think it is
there,
important, Prof? And Mugabe made Zimbabwe dollar disappear.
Kennedy?
No. I don't think that is true, because one of the reasons why people went to war, it had to do with the land question. So the land question, even in the Lancaster House Constitution, the land question was also addressed. And there was a time frame which was given in order to go through the winning buyer, winning seller process. And we get to the 1999 invasion. This had to happen as a way of making sure that that which the British had not honored could be addressed in another way.
But Kennedy, we are running out of time. Prof is saying that was not really your policy. That was not something that you came up with. You jumped on the bandwagon of what was the mood in the country at the time.
That's not what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying is not true. Because the land question was there ever since. We needed to address it. And it has to do with the way in which we went in for it. We could have done it differently, but we did it the way we did, and it is right as we speak at the moment.
Yielding results for you. What do you think of what is happening in Zimbabwe? Who is making more sense to you on this stage? To give us your thoughts on our Facebook page, Interface on SABC3, SMS line as it's scrolling across your screen, 33726. We are back right after this break. I just want to quickly take some of your comments on Facebook. There are a lot of them, so we won't be able to go through everything. But Puti Mudiba says, it's in the hands of the citizens of Zimbabwe to free themselves from the present regime. And Linge Godfrey Ngaleka says, the people of Zimbabwe want Robert Mugabe, let them have Robert Mugabe. And we also have Gundombi G says, if the election doesn't go according to plan, South Africa should respect the choice of the Zimbabweans and leave them to lead their lives the way that they see fit. And just another quick one, Oscar Mahlatsi says, it is incumbent upon the people of Zimbabwe to stand for what they believe in. Let's hope for the best by not expecting the worst out of this election. So those are some of your Facebook messages. We're loving them. Do keep them coming. And just quickly getting back to you in studio. One of the issues that has come up, and we know that it has already been decided, and that is that Zimbabweans in the diaspora outside of the country need to go into the country, back to Zimbabwe, to cast their votes. Now, looking at the administrative issues with that, because you now suddenly will have an influx of people coming home to cast their votes, and also the fact that you only have 2 days within which they have to do that, would it not be a wiser thing to do to allow them to cast their votes outside of Zimbabwe?
The position of the MDC with regards to what you call the diaspora vote is that we believe people should have been allowed to vote outside Zimbabwe. It's not their fault that they're outside Zimbabwe in the first place. There is a ruling which was made by the African Commission on allowing people to vote. Mind you, this issue was taken to court, and the courts which now engage in judicial activism refused.
Okay, why is that?
Would have loved the situation where people in the diaspora voted in the diaspora. But the position as of now, as agreed by the inclusive government, is that we cannot have people in the diaspora voting in the diaspora.
Why, though?
And I think this had to do with logistical reasons. It was not something that ZANU-PF dictated on MDC.
But Kennedy, I'm outlining for you the administrative hurdles with that. Is it not perhaps better to allow that to happen outside of Zimbabwe?
Anyone who is interested in voting, I think, has a responsibility to make sure that he or she is in his constituents, in his or her own ward during those particular days.
Okay, your sense, Prof, let me just bring, let me bring Prof in.
I think that diaspora voting is usually very complex. Countries that practice it in Africa, like Mozambique, Zimbabwe should have learned from them. Even South Africa, we have been very hesitant to have people in the diaspora vote, and we have allowed, a small space for them to vote in the embassies and so on, because they are scattered wherever they are. They are not just where the embassies are. And I think it is something that needs to be worked out. Africa has good examples. Mozambique, Cape Verde, and others have been practicing this. Let's learn from each other rather than simply say, no, it is not possible. But there was a fear, particularly for ZANU-PF. They think that the people in the diaspora may be more leaning towards the opposition because of the terror that sent some of the people out. But that may not be the case, because we meet a lot of Zimbabweans in South Africa who also support Mugabe. So I think it is an area where after this election, the next election, Zimbabwe ought to look at very carefully.
And just before we wrap up, then, the issue of the global political agreement and some of the outstanding issues in that agreement, what is the way forward with that, Kennedy?
The way forward in terms of the GPA is that most of the issues that are referred to as outstanding, they are contained in the Constitution. It becomes the responsibility of the new government to make sure that they address these issues. Whatever issue, it could be the security sector, which is a contentious issue at the moment. It could be any other issue. They are now contained in the Constitution. So it becomes business for those that get into power. And in this case, it has to be ZANU-PF.
And are you able, as the MDC, then, to make a positive contribution to that, considering that now you are part of what Prof is saying is not a government of national unity, let's get it right, but a power-sharing agreement where Morgan Tsvangirai is the Prime Minister? Can you still maintain a critical voice as the opposition?
Well, for starters, Morgan Tsvangirai is going to win the election on Wednesday anyway. So implementation...
Well, that's your claim. And Kennedy, can you shine the ZANU-PF flag as well?
So the implementation Kennedy refers to will be in the hands of Morgan Tsvangirai. But the security sector do not really care what is on paper. I mean, the rules of the law simply state, for example, the Police Act stops people from engaging in partisan politics. But what does Augustine Chiwori do? Each and every day, he arrests members of the MDC and lets members of ZANU-PF
But what's the way forward? What do we do with this agreement that has all of these hanging issues now
the agreement ends with the election. And Morgan Tsvangirai takes over. Zimbabwe becomes a better country.
Kennedy?
The agreement is one thing that we thought should have ended 18 months immediately after the GAPA came into effect, so that somebody could have taken business from there. And it had to be a legitimate government chosen by the people, which is what we are going to do this time. And after this time, we'll be having one government run by one particular party with the others, the opposition, in this case MDC and the other parties. And ZANU-PF will be ruling the
It's important to look at these presidential elections, who will win it, and parliament, who is going to win the majority in parliament. And at this stage, it's difficult to know who will be the president. But I think it is
I hear you.
A close
It's a
contest,
close race.
very, very close.
And just finally, as we wrap up, what's at risk then, should these elections not be declared free and fair?
No, I think that they will be relatively free and fair. A lot of hitches here and there, but it's going to be steps, because we saw what happened in 2008.
And nobody
was so
wants a
bad
return to that.
That nobody in Zimbabwe, I hope, wants the same thing to happen.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time. Thank you for coming through. That's where we have to end it for tonight. Thank you for watching. Do join us again next week at the same time. Good night.